Okay, everybody, we are in the session about using Lean and Kaizen to make sure source control inspections, or to make source control inspections more effective. I would like for everybody to please silence your cell phone. I think you've probably heard this 20 times now, but all of the sessions are being recorded. And we ask that you hold the questions until the end, and we'll turn the recording off, and then the Q&A session will not be recorded. I would like to introduce our two speakers for this session. We've got Kevin Buckley, who's a strategic advisor focusing on stormwater and wastewater regulatory compliance for Seattle Public Utilities. And Jessica Branom-Zwick leads Cascadia Consulting Group's evaluation practice, working with clients to measure and improve behavior change programs and community-based social marketing campaigns on topics such as stormwater, pollution prevention, and recycling. Thank you both for coming.
All right, welcome to MuniCon afternoon. I love MuniCon. Okay, so how many of you can relate to this? You have a lot of work to do. You know there's something that you could do easier or better, but you just don't have time to do it. SPU is in that same situation. We're phase one, so we've been doing business inspections for a long time. You might have seen that Seattle's growing, our number of businesses are growing, we're not getting new staff, so we need to figure out a way to do this better. So I'm hoping through Jessica and I's presentations today that you can become more like this person and suggest some process improvements. So what we did is we used Lean, which is also known as Kaizen, Six Sigma, Seven Sigma if you're at Boeing, to look at our processes and try to identify where we could gain some efficiencies. I should follow my notes a little better, but and it is normally used for production, like building cars. Toyota started it, but it can be adapted to programs like we implement, so that's what we did. So why did we do Lean? Well, this is actually the before Lean business inspection process put in sticky notes on butcher paper. And as you can see, it's very complicated, had a lot of steps, and our inspectors knew that it was complicated and there was probably efficiencies we could gain. So we wanted to try to identify those efficiencies, and through our knowledge of these practices, we thought Lean would be a good tool. Another motivation, like I mentioned before, is that the number of businesses are growing, but we are not able to add staff due to budget restrictions, so we needed to find a way to have our inspectors do more than they were currently doing. We also were in the process of designing a new database for our business inspection and other programs, and so we wanted to be able to fully understand the steps and build our new database in a way that matched our steps. So we did a Lean process to try to make ourselves more efficient. So when you do a Lean process, you map out your process like I showed on the previous slide, and then you total up kind of how long that process takes. Then as a group, you do process experiments to create short-term and long-term improvements, and then you implement the short-term improvements immediately. And so through implementing some short-term improvements immediately, we were able to save these percentages of an increase, which are pretty big increases. But we wanted to figure out, do you maintain that over time? It's great to do it right away, but how is that maintained over time? So about 1.5 years after we did this, we hired Cascadia Consulting Group to evaluate the effectiveness of the Lean transformation on getting businesses in compliance. Ideally in the future, we'd like to evaluate through this process if businesses are remaining in compliance longer. That is, when we go back and visit them, are they still in compliance with the things we recommended they do last time, but not enough time has passed through our inspection cycles to do that. So today we're going to focus on the business in compliance, and now I'm going to turn it over to Jessica.
Thanks, Kevin. So what did this evaluation involve? Well, we looked at two things. First, we asked whether the changes worked. That is, did businesses actually come into compliance faster after the Lean transformation? For this, we analyzed Kevin's existing inspection data to compare the number of days between the initial inspection and the time when the case was closed because it had come into compliance. We had 4 years of before data and 1 year of after data. We also interviewed staff to find out why it worked, meaning which changes were most effective, and also how did the Lean process go. So I'll start with, Did it work? That answer is yes, unequivocally. So what this chart shows is the percentage of cases that had corrective action required. So here's starting from no cases to 100%. On the vertical axis, and then the horizontal axis is what percent of those cases had come into compliance by that date. So starting from 0 days, so the day of the inspection, 30 days after the initial inspection, 60, 90, 120, and so on. So this gray line is the before. So you can see that after 30 days, 11% of cases had come into inspection, about half after 60 days, and not quite 3/4 after 90 days. So this next line is the cases after the lean transformation. These are cases that were started after they had implemented the changes. So on the left side, you can see a big jump in cases that came into a compliance immediately, from 1 to 13%. And I'll talk about what that is and means when I get to the why it worked section. Then you can see that in the after case, their compliance at 30 days quadrupled from 11% to 44%. They increased compliance within 60 days from half to 3/4. And then at 90 days, they cut in half the percentage of cases that were still out of compliance. So before lean, at 90 days, 27% of cases were out of compliance. After lean, only 13% were. We did statistical analysis on that. If you're interested, I have cards, I can send you the report. So overall, the median days to compliance decreased by 40% from 61 days before to 36 days after. Now you may be thinking that all those cases that opened and closed on the same day might be skewing it. So if we take those out, there was still faster compliance, down by 30%, down to a median of 43 days. As I said, we also interviewed program staff to find out why and how it worked. So next I'll talk about what you're probably most interested in, which is what changes were most effective. So according to program staff, one of the most effective and popular changes was the new corrected closing procedure. Before lean, which is what this slide shows, no matter how simple the corrective action, the inspector had to tell the business that they were that they had a corrective action required, write a letter telling them to take that action, and then had to drive back and reinspect the site after 30 days. So as part of lean, SBU decided that for some simple actions, they could be more efficient with a corrected closing procedure. This procedure lets inspectors sign off on simple corrections made in the field immediately. It's now used in about 10% of corrective action cases. It's most commonly used for things like spill kits, spill plans, and spill training. So before, inspectors would tell the business that there was a form they could fill out to request free assistance with spill preparedness from SBU's contractor Ecos. Now, instead, inspectors fill out that form for the business while they're on site, directly requesting the assistance for them, and then Ecos just reports completion back to SBU. And very, very few businesses refuse. I think they said in the year it was 1 or 2, and they're flagged as soon as they refuse, and SBU follows up with a little bit more enforcement. So with this new procedure, the inspector just sends one letter that documents both that a corrective action was required and that it's been made. Inspectors said this one change saved the most time for them. They also said that businesses really liked the more service-oriented approach, and they felt that the businesses felt that it shows respect for their time, that the inspectors really do demonstrate respect for the businesses. Looking at the data, this one change seems to account for a 12 percentage point jump in immediate compliance. That was that first jump on the chart. According to program staff, the second most effective change was in eliminating the second and final warning letter. So previously, at the initial inspection, If they had corrective actions required, the business was told that after 30 days, they'd get another warning. So now, businesses are told that after 30 days, you'll be in violation. But to allow flexibility for businesses that are genuinely trying to come into compliance, SPU offers documented extensions to businesses that do demonstrate progress. So all inspectors interviewed supported eliminating the second and final warning letter. As I said, they said that the second warning made businesses feel they really had 60 days to come into compliance. And so cutting it created a greater sense of urgency to come into, to act within 30 days. One inspector also noted that inspectors don't like to write notices of violation. And so to avoid that hassle of writing an NOV, he felt he and some of his colleagues might be more proactive in reminding the businesses and communicating with them about coming into compliance. At the same time, inspectors did like retaining that flexibility to be able to offer extensions to businesses that could demonstrate progress. And that progress could be shown by having a contractor scheduled to come out and do the work, like a basin cleaning, or having requested multiple bids, things like that. So data show that the 30-day compliance rate increased by 33 percentage points on that chart I showed before. So if 12 points of that jump came from the corrected closing procedure, that means that about 21 percentage points of that jump came from this change, and the next change I'll talk about, improved messaging. So to improve messaging, inspectors developed standardized talking points and a new letter template that focused more on the inspection and enforcement process. To create the new talking points, inspectors reviewed BMPs and the code together. They felt that this review process also helped them become more consistent across inspectors and in their interpretation of the BMPs. So while this change does create more consistency across inspectors, they still retain the flexibility to use their own voice and to tailor their message to the business activities and to the business location, which in Seattle, the primary determinant is whether they're in or out of the Duwamish Basin. I will now hand it back to Kevin, who can talk about one additional benefit of these changes.
Not working. Escape. There we go. Okay. So obviously our goal was really to increase efficiency, and that's because, as I said, the number of businesses are growing, and based on how many working days there are in a year, the team has to inspect 3 businesses a day, which is a heavy workload. So we're trying to become more efficient, but we're also trying to make sure that at that workload, they were satisfied in the job they were doing. And so all of the things that Jessica described were things that the team came up with during the lean process that they felt would make them more efficient and give better customer service in the end. And so that created a feeling of empowerment among them. It produced this co-leadership benefit where they're leading some of these processes. It's not management telling them what to do. And overall, they had a greater satisfaction in their job. The other benefit, which Jessica touched on a little bit, is that we hope to add more inspectors in the future, and so by having this process and having all the inspectors work on it, we have a better training method for new inspectors as they come on, so they'll be trained in the same methods that the existing inspectors are trained to. So, how many of you are intrigued and may want to try this? Nobody? Oh, Laura Reed. Okay, so I'm just going to cover really quickly some tips that will help you. So, this is continuous improvement. So the main thing you have to do is you have to make sure that you as employees or managers, you have to make space within the workday to do this, because you can't just do this once and then expect it to continue on. You have to do continuous improvement. I think one of the things that you can do that really helps is what we did is we hired an expert, but you could train yourself and you could do this yourself, but you go away from work and you focus on this and you do these experiments and process improvements and then you implement them. That really helps a lot to step away. You have to have the support of management. Management has to back this because they have to make the time for the continuous improvement, and there might be some improvements that you want to make that require additional budget or staff, and they're going to be the ones that are going to advocate advocate for that. And then, you know, you just have to have a general sense of ownership among all the team members. And then as you hire new staff, you have to make sure that they either have experience in lean or have the desire to learn lean and implement it as part of a continuous improvement process. So now what we'd like to try is, this is Tim MacDonald, and we videotaped him, click it, kind of giving his impression as one of the inspectors that participated in the process and is implementing the new changes.
Our inspector group found the lean process to be a positive one. There are a couple different reasons for that. First one I would like to bring up is there's some quality of life issues that we found through the lean process. We're doing a lot of administrative work in our group, mailing letters and things like that were never being read, quite frankly. So by using the lean process, we were able to pull some of that extraneous administrative work out of our normal processes and focus on our core work, which is inspecting. Another reason we found the lean process successful and a positive one was that there's actually time in the training to implement the trainings that are, or the changes that are discussed in the training. In other words, you don't have to set meetings out in advance. Typically, the training has everyone in the room that you kind of need to change the program, so you can do it right then and there. And we found that to be able to see the changes right away during that training is just a positive one that helped our group become more efficient and actually enjoy our work more. So I highly recommend the lean process. We've saved days off of our yearly workload and have been able to focus on our core work, which is inspecting.
And that's it.